Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on SimulTV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome to another episode of Kal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Folks, as I say pretty much at the top of every show, because it's true, the purpose of Kal's Corner is to cover subjects ranging from politics to the paranormal. Obviously, in the 1 hour that we have, not quite 1 hour, we can't cover everything from A to Z. That would be ridiculous. But in this case, we're going to cover a little bit of politics tonight, and a whole lot of paranormal, as in UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or what some people call flying saucers. Now, we've talked about this before, leading up to this show that aired on the History Channel. It was called Unidentified. The world finally got to see the hooey, and it was hooey, a bunch of bull hooey, to be polite, that the History Channel aired on Friday, and it was disgraceful. I'm just being really blunt with you. Now, I'm going to start this whole shtick here, whatever you want to call it, my view on this, and I'm going to give you some facts that I challenge anybody to disprove them. If I'm wrong, since I don't have an ego in this, I'm happy to correct it on a subsequent show here. I don't mind. In fact, in my life, I've learned that being wrong is one of the best ways to learn. Sometimes painful, but you can't ignore lessons in life. Anyway, getting back to History Channel. For those who have watched both the History Channel and Discovery Networks for many years now, and I've been on programs that have aired on both networks, one can argue that especially with the History Channel today, and this probably started to occur around the hit series Vikings, they might as well call themselves the History Entertainment Channel or something. To call it the History Channel, the history of what? The history of BS? It's ridiculous. This UFO show that they did, The Unidentified, and keep in mind that one of the most successful shows History Channel's made is called Ancient Aliens, which is ridiculous. You know, I've actually talked to a person who was in prison, and he told me that the two most popular shows in prison that were being watched by the guys, it was a male prison, were these two shows, Ancient Aliens and Project Blue Book. And this person knows me. He knows I grew up with Alan Hynek. He knows that I knew Hynek, and I used to share stories in my youth with him, since we're 5 years apart, about 5 years apart, 4.5 years apart. And I used to tell him about Hynek and Friedman and everybody else I've known, and have revealed some previously known information I've talked about for years off and on this network, but of course it's ignored by the UFO community. And I have warned people, including bozos like Andre Skandras, who's a Friedman fanboy, that this data is out there that proves, and Friedman, for example, knew the Hill case was not as credible as he said. Specifically, he knew that the Marjorie Fish star map was disproven back in the 1970s when I showed him the data, and at his request had spent a year researching it. Again, this information has come out now in the current issue of the recent X Chronicles magazine. You see the lead story, tribute to Stanton Friedman. There's a piece in there by Kevin Randall, who can also tell you his stories about Stanton Friedman. If he wants to be very blunt, I'll let him do that. He's his own man. And then, of course, myself, having grown up with this guy, he was my mentor. He was my idol at the time, kind of like a father figure. I emulated him. I double-checked all the stuff he said, found out a lot of it was wanting. And the tragedy is that after all those decades later, the cosmic Watergate ended up being a cosmic watermelon, and it was on him. It's pretty bad when one leaves a legacy that one refuses to face the facts. And Stanton Friedman, as I reiterate again, and we've proven, and this is more data is going to come out, and it's been known for decades. This data from the 70s cannot be ignored. Friedman was aware of it, of course. He had copies of the stuff. And we see here that, again, the truth was not what we were told to believe. It was a lie, to be honest. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because we can now fast forward to the present, as in what happened a few days ago on the History Channel nearly a week ago with this debacle called the Unidentified. And if you believe the hooey and the hype that led up to the show, this is supposed to be the disclosure. Now, I want to tell you about disclosure. Every time I hear somebody say the disclosure movement, and I encounter what I call a disclosure head, disclosure nut, disclosure nutter, butter, whatever you want to call them, I'll tell you as a rule, I don't generally respect people who believe in the disclosure thing because it's based, again, on hooey. We have to remember that this aviary, folks, is imaginary. Jamie Shandera, hello, duh, admitted that he made the whole thing up so he could give code names to sources connected to the military or the intelligence community or the government overall. They may have worked as a secretary, who knows, that would give them UFO information. And you will remember, it's matter of public record, that Bill Moore, the original co-author of the Roswell Incident book, with Charles Berlitz, Jamie Shandera was co-founder of Focus, the group and magazine, that journal that they ran briefly, and the Fair Witness Project. I was part of that, okay? Again, Bill Moore published my first Meyer expose book that I wrote in high school. And he told me after my Roswell book, the Roswell UFO Crash, what they don't want you to know, the they being pretty much the UFO researchers who are lying to you, especially the Roswell authors. All 22 of the major Roswell books are exposed in my book. It remains the best-selling book to date, gone through several editions, available on Amazon.com from Bantam, Doubleday, Dell, Random House Books, paperback, $8, can't beat it, disproves all 22 Roswell major books, and it also was the first book to destroy Colonel Corso and to prove that book wrong. And when I say destroy, I'm not speaking from an ego view here. It may sound a bit bravadish, I don't know, but I'm speaking from firsthand experience because I am one of the 4 original Roswell researchers. And I don't care what my critics say. They weren't, they aren't. And most of the Roswell researchers today were bandwagon jumpers who jumped on only after NBC aired that Unsolved Mysteries episode on Roswell, that all kinds of hoax witnesses, all of whom have crashed and burned, like Frank Kaufman, Jim Ragsdale, Glenn Dennis, etc., they've all gone up in smoke because they were hoaxers who came out after they saw the Unsolved Mysteries episode. You can nail it to the week practically. So, again, back to the History Channel, we were told that disclosure was coming. Not only disclosure, beyond the usual BS that has happened for decades where all these people claim disclosure and they book conferences and, come on, pay your money, you're going to hear all this stuff. It's finally coming out, folks. And at the end of the day, doesn't happen. Same thing happened again, only this time there was a lot more eyes and ears on it. The platform was more focused. It was a higher altar that they decided to pull this. I'm calling it a scam, okay? Meaning, when I looked at that history show, there's so much stuff in there that is not true that they knew was not true. that the only way that you can describe this is that they have lied to the public. I'll give you a couple examples. Dr. Hal Puthoff, he's listed as a CIA scientist. Ooh, well, that's news of the CIA. Now, Hal Puthoff, you can Google him. I'm going to let his pro-Scientology rants in the past, where he tried to say Scientology, the secret to Scientology was being powered by the paranormal. And he was fooled by, of course, a magician named Uri Geller. You may have heard of him. Yeah, he's one of their hot stuff scientists there. And the guy is just a total bozo. I'm sorry. He's the one who ran damage control and spin and was blocking on behalf of Bigelow, the guy who got the $22 million from Harry Reid, his donor, to tell the government about UFOs, stuff the government couldn't know. So a guy who owns a hotel chain, Bigelow, he's going to tell the government stuff it doesn't know about aliens visiting the Earth, because his ranch that he used to own called Skinwalker, of course that's going to be an upcoming series if Discovery or if History Channel has its way. They're going to continue this farce. That place was haunted, according to Harry Reid and Robert Bigelow and even Hal Puthoff. And, of course, there's everything from giant animal dogs and wolves who can't be killed with magnum caliber bullets. Wow. And then you've got portholes. And these creatures emerging out of them, these black figures going into the ground. You've got these glowing orbs. All kinds of stuff going on there. I mean, what senator would not want to fund one-stop shopping for paranormal research? I mean, the same guy who happens to give money to Harry Reid, and Harry Reid just happens to give him $22 million to tell him about UFOs and the paranormal, is convinced Skinwalker Ranch is haunted. Hello, and a bunch of paranormal stuff going on there. It's all occurring in one place. People don't have to travel very far. They can go there. The aliens are coming here. The paranormal is opening its kimono. And a guy who owns a hotel chain named Robert Bigelow gets to get the data with Hal Puthoff, who, of course, was his board of director for NIDS, the previous initiative, which wasted a lot of money. Although that was private money, that was okay. But this was taxpayer money. Your money, if you're an American listening to this. And your money was wasted without congressional approval or any oversight. It was stolen from the black budget and moved over into Bigelow's account. And 37 or 38 supposedly scientific papers were written. That's an expensive per paper. What is it? $750,000 roughly per paper. And then some of them had already been published. Hello. So were the taxpayers being double dipped? The whole thing stinks. And then we find out that according to the Intercept magazine, and that's still being run down, folks, Lou Elizondo was not the head of the ATIP project. He wasn't the head of the ATIP project, even though he said he was. Well, the Pentagon and the very office who claims they still have people working there who know Elizondo said he wasn't the entire time he was there. You can look up that article in the Intercept. And right now, both sides are trying to defend that charge. The To the Stars Academy is, of course, saying, oh, no, we were telling you the truth. And we know they have lied. And the DOD is saying, wait a minute, we're sticking by our statement. Well, we will find out the truth soon, folks. And whatever it is, we'll let you know. Again, we don't have a dog in this fight. We just want the truth. Now, let's talk about a couple other examples in the show that were ridiculous, that are relevant to some of the stuff here. And we'll come back after the break and go into details.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, SimulTV.com, SimulTV.com.
What's SimulTV.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean SimulTV.com.
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 Right. SimulTV.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a SimulTV.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about SimulTV.com. She even spelled it out for me. SimulTV.com, sonny boy.
SimulTV.com.
SimulTV.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
SimulTV.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about SimulTV.com. SimulTV.com.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Kal's Corner Radio here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we were talking about that farce of a so-called documentary that the History Channel ran almost a week ago. It was called The Unidentified, and I'm sorry to inform you folks that there's 5 more episodes coming. And based on the previews of the next one, it's going to get worse. Again, they promised groundbreaking stuff that was brand spanking new, and it really wasn't. The data has been known for a long time to people who have really dug deep in the case. For example, the female pilot who was shown in shadow, I've known about her since last year. In fact, there were back-channel conversations involving some of these people who later appeared on the show. And they had very interesting things to say about Lou Elizondo, and they're not happy right now. We'll let them come forward. Anyway, if you look at the footage, and you look at the official documents that have been released, leaked supposedly, published, of course, and deliberately censored by in-the-tank reporters like George Knapp, and he's an investor in TTSA, by the way. He doesn't say that, hi, I'm George Knapp, I'm an investor in TTSA, now let me tell you, whatever. No, he says, I didn't invest him to have a conflict of interest, I just invested to help him. Oh, really? Okay. I guess 1 dozen is no longer 12. Anyway, so you look at this document, the so-called Pentagon document of the incident report, and it's a joke, and I'll tell you why. It's not even marked classified or nothing. George Knapp admits he censored it, blacked out stuff. Isn't that mighty convenient? So much for redefining transparency. And then you look at the account, and it's very problematic. First of all, the narrative that we have been sold to the public, carried and repeated uncritically by the New York Times, especially reporters, so-called reporters by Leslie Kean, and, of course, repeated even worse blindly by the media, who didn't even bother to check what the New York Times didn't bother to check. And the whole thing just goes downhill from there. I'll briefly summarize some very problematic points here. We must remember that the Nimitz encounters occurred right after they had just gotten their radar upgraded. Now, this new radar is super sophisticated. It can detect something as small as a softball at about 80,000 feet. That's pretty sensitive stuff, okay? So the moment they turn on the switch for this new radar, there's UFOs coming in from outer space. Okay. Now, nobody saw them. There's just a bunch of blips on the radar, and they're still shaking this stuff down. They have to calibrate the radar so it doesn't pick up flocks of birds and anything else, and even reflections from sea salt crystals in the atmosphere. Yes, it gets cold up there, folks. It could also get kind of warm. Hello. And they had to calibrate this stuff. And then while they were doing this, NASA, which had nothing to do with what the Navy was doing, was bringing in the secret space plane, which can fly Mach 22, hello, and they brought it in over a 48-hour window that these incidents occurred. Boy, that was just a cluster piece of ocean there, wasn't it? Everybody wanted that piece of ocean. And so all of a sudden, the radar operator says, he's seen these things fine. And depending on who you believe, 80,000 feet means they must be at least 80,000 feet. Well, others claim maybe 60,000 feet. Well, whether they're 60 or 80,000 feet, if you don't know, that's a problem, especially when you've got the biggest, baddest, most advanced radar you just installed in the biggest, baddest carrier attack group that existed until the new Gerald Ford class aircraft carriers, which smoke the old Nimitz class carriers like the Enterprise and the Nimitz. Those were done in the 60s, okay? So the point is, you have this event going on. NASA has had this device up in the air for a year. Nobody's seen it. They've only seen the shell that hides it. They don't know what's in there. It comes down very close to the area. And, of course, the government later says that they fired some of these things over there and they lost them in the ocean. How convenient. There were reports that this thing may have gone in the water. There was a report that this thing, there was a wake. And one of the pilots said, it looked to me like something left when a submarine submerges. But another pilot got a look at another one and said it was roundish, and this little tic-tac was hovering there. Now think about that for a moment, folks. The pilot said they didn't see any smoke or exhaust. Okay, that's what they said. But there's ways to hide that stuff. It's not, magic. And if there is still something coming out of the end of that device, which, based on our conventional physics, that would be required in some form or another, unless you've got some protective bubble that's insulating you from, let's call it the world of physics. So let's say it is blowing something out of the back end as a propellant, like a rocket does, whatever. Well, it's interesting to note that this tic-tac, which was seen by the other pilot, said it was hovering above the water, and that the water was spreading out like a circle, and like it was bubbling, like it was being heated up. Well, that's interesting, because if that thing was hypersonic, could go Mach 22, and it does exist, we have it, folks. It just has not been officially seen yet. There are drawings of it that have been offered by the defense contractors. And you know what they look like? They look triangular shaped, very similar to the Go Fast video. This thing that looks like a bit of a triangle on the side. To use a rough analogy, if you were to take a blurred image of the Death Star, not the Death Star, but the ship that Darth Vader uses, the triangular shape ship there, the Imperial Star Cruiser, it looks kind of like that. And that's exactly the shape of this NASA thing. And I know that because I wrote about it. And it was published in an article. It was, at that time, back in India, in Daily Post. In fact, what I think I'll do is I'll send it to Rob. And there it is. I covered it because I've covered defense and space issues as a reporter and journalist because I used to work at Boeing in the defense and space industry. I worked at KMI, Lawrence Livermore Lab. I'm the only UFO researcher who did, other than Bob Lazar. And that's why I know Bob Lazar's a fraud, because I ran that trap years ago in the 1980s. And I got news for you folks. There's another article coming out that isn't on the internet. So this will bother right-click researcher types. And I've had this for years. It's a full-page story done on me when I was hired at the lab, talking about some of the things I was doing. Proves I worked there. And, of course, I've got tons of witnesses. There's no question I worked there. It's only Ben Stanton Friedman fanboys and people who just don't want to accept the truth who say, well, there's no evidence he worked there. That's in the case of at least one joker I know of. He's trying to get me to tell him what I did there. I don't fall for that game. I don't have to prove I worked there. It's a matter of record. And, in fact, I'm going to enjoy that in my Social Security. I just got my report actually last year, and I found out how much I made when I was there. Surprised me. But anyway, so we have, again, this NASA-type object that went into the sea. That's what the government says. We lost it in the sea. And then, of course, the Tic Tac thing. It's hovering above the water, and if you believe that wake, that round circle, is from some sort of exhaust, well, you can try that yourself. If you try to do that above water, you're going to get a similar result. And then, what about the fact that the other pilot who got up there, who ended up taking that one video, which shows with the FLIR camera, the forward-looking infrared camera, That's the one that they use to promote all this. First of all, there's one thing they're doing deliberately. You'll notice that in most of that footage, the object appears to be upside down, meaning if you assume, and it's a very dangerous assumption, that the dome of an object should always be on top. That's a man-made projection there, folks. Who knows what an alien might think? They might not even know what a dome is. We don't know. We haven't talked to an alien. Point is, this thing was flying by our standards upside down. The dome's on the bottom. But yet, if you look at the still frame for Unidentified, they flipped it in the art department right side up so that the dome is up like a Billy Meyer UFO hoax. Now, that's disgraceful because they deliberately chose that frame and manipulated it. In fact, I was looking forward to seeing super high quality copies. Remember, these were supposedly made from the masters that they got a hold of these pilot videos. And the quality that they showed on that program, in my mind, the program I saw that was broadcast, was worse quality than some of the websites around here. And this is a TV network. Now, usually when that happens, based on my own long-time experience in TV, it's deliberate, okay? I mean, let's say you make a copy and you realize, oh, it doesn't look as good. Well, you should do something about that. In this case, it's a digital copy. So the digital copy is going to look exactly like the master unless the guy who made the copy doesn't know what he's doing. So, again, it makes no sense. And then when there's lines in the show like, oh, Tom DeLonge, Mr. Blink went ahead and reached all the way up to the highest levels of government. John Podesta. What are these guys smoking? Change their drugs. At least get legal ones or whatever, so to speak. John Podesta wasn't in the government. Hello? He was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. Yeah, he would like to be because he would have liked to have won, but he lost. But we now know, thanks to WikiLeaks, that the game was afoot. We know that DeLonge schmoozed Podesta, which is easy to do. He's a conspiracy UFO nutter. He said the biggest regret he has is that he didn't have all the UFO files declassified when he could have. Well, first of all, he's not in charge of that. Secondly, he could still work that trap, but he's not. He's probably more worried about his brother, who's in prison because Mueller nailed him for, breaking the law with the Ukrainians, the same stuff that Manafort's in solitary confinement now over. So much for John Podesta. But based on the WikiLeaks emails, which I've read and I have copies of, and they're real, we can thank the Russians for the fact we know they exist. The scheme was on. Harry Reid was leaving office. He was leaving under a cloud that he had been nailed in the Inspector General report for putting improper pressure on somebody. And we'll be back after the commercial break to explain that.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on SimulTV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is SimulTV. SimulTV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. SimulTV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have SimulTV today. Sign up at SimulTV.com. Do it today.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show. Once again, my name is Kal Korff. I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, back to former Senator Harry Reid. Keep in mind he was the head of the Senate. Pretty powerful guy. Well, again, what happened is he was leaving government in part because the Inspector General had nailed him for trying to improperly, illegally influence a subordinate to put pressure on him to grant a casino license for a firm that had ties to the mafia. This is not something I'm making up. You can look this up. And then his son, of course, is a lawyer of some kind with this group who's trying to get the casino license. What a coincidence, you know. Reminds me of the other venture that Harry Reid's offspring were in with the Chinese over the solar farm in Nevada. Of course, we know what the Chinese did. They deliberately flooded the market illegally with below-cost solar panels, drove all their competitors out, and then Obama didn't do anything to stop or complain, even with the WTO. He just kept saying they're shovel-ready jobs, and he gave millions of dollars of wasted taxpayer money to solar firms that went out of business, took the money, and run. And, of course, Obama and the Democrats did nothing because they love green energy waste. Let's be blunt about it. That's another show. We'll talk about that later because that problem is probably going to exist as long as anyone listening to this are alive, and there are things called Democrats. All right, getting back to Harry Reid now. This is the same Harry Reid who played a key role in pushing Obamacare through. Okay, Obamacare is popular with Americans, although they'd like to see it work right for once. But if you ask Harry Reid today, he'll say his greatest accomplishment was the UFO thing. Okay, so he says he's the most proudest of giving Bigelow $22 million, tell the government about UFOs that they don't know. Wow, I don't know, folks. I just, you know, when you see this stuff and you think this guy was the head of the U.S. Senate, this guy could pass legislation, this UFO nutter is passing laws, is taking millions of dollars in campaign contributions. Don't tell me there's no corruption there or influence peddling. I mean, I've talked to people in Nevada, face-to-face, who have told me that they knew Harry Reid when he was a little boy and that he grew up with nothing, dirt poor. But amazingly, like so many politicians, once they get in power, they become experts in the stock market and investments, so much so that they have such luck that they leave government pretty much wealthy. And it's all a coincidence, of course, you know. And of course, they never invest in line with laws they know that are going to be passed that will, you know, affect their investments. That's just coincidence, too. No, it's not, folks. You can actually do a simple mapping and plotting where you will see cause and effect on this. So, you know, here we go. The Democrats are complaining about all this stuff, but now they're pushing a $5,000 raise in Congress, which they, of course, can approve. I'm sorry, folks. They shouldn't get anything until they do their job, and I believe their raise should be determined by the American people or should be milestone-based. If you say you're going to balance the budget and you don't, well, guess what happens in the private world if you miss your targets? There's usually a price to pay, consequences. But I don't think American voters overall are smart enough to do that yet, because we keep electing bozos into office and then we bitch about the results. And that's why I didn't vote in the last election. I used to believe when I was a kid that if you don't vote, you have no right to say anything. Well, I disagree with that. How can you have freedom of speech protected by the Constitution if you don't do something? And you have the right not to do something. You have the right not to participate. Civil disobedience, for example. So I was re-listening to George Carlin in India, and I thought, he's right about this point, although he's a liberal and I don't agree with everything he says. But he was way ahead of his time, and I wish he were alive today, because you can only imagine what he would say about everybody from Trump to the leader of Canada to Nancy Pelosi. Oh, God, I'd love to hear what Carlin would say. I wish somebody could really channel anybody and channel him, but of course nobody can. Anyway, so back to this thing of what they're doing. They claim that they want a $5,000 raise. And, of course, they don't want Trump impeached. They want him in prison. Okay, that's not divisive, even though they say, impeachment would be. The whole thing is just bad. So if this continues, I'm not going to vote in the next election, because at least I can say, like the last one, my conscience is clean. I thought so little of these two people that I want a third alternative. And I know Trump isn't really a Republican, but let's be honest, he's broken a lot of his promises. He said, for example, he'd never play a day of golf like Obama did because he's too busy. He's going to be president. Well, he's making so much money playing golf at his own resort, which, of course, taxpayers have to pay for. The American system is not equipped to handle a billionaire who can monetize himself if he wins an election, not winning the majority of the votes. That's how on top of it America is with their political system. And then now you have something that's come up even really scary. There is the movement that has gone on where they're saying the National Popular Vote movement. Basically, there is an alliance of 15 states. Nevada's the latest to sign up. California's driving this, of course, because they have the most votes in the Electoral College. These states have said they've signed an agreement among them, a pact that is binding, that in the next election, regardless of who wins, whoever gets the popular vote, they will automatically give them all the electors. This will prevent another Trump-type victory. Oh boy, you better believe Hillary Clinton wishes this pact had been signed when she ran for president. But this is a fallout to make sure that a Trump-type candidate can't win again, at least if he runs on the side of the Republicans. With the Democrats, we know, we've already seen their playbook. They just stack the deck so much against anybody who would buck the system, like Bernie Sanders, that they award hundreds of superdelegates to Hillary ahead of time, so that anybody would have to win about 90% of the votes going forward to even beat her. And, of course, that's not going to happen. So this whole thing is rigged to the point where it doesn't matter anymore if you have one man, one vote. I have switched my view from supporting the Electoral College to I want popular vote. It shouldn't matter where people live. If the majority of people in America, in a democracy, want something, they should get it. On the other hand, you have to be careful, because as the Greeks, who invented the concept of democracy, it's even their word, they warned against tyranny of the masses. In fact, a lot of bleeding liberal millennials today who hold up what they think are socialist countries like Sweden and Denmark, which are not, as being utopias, which they're not. I've been to both countries many times. They're not utopias. They are they're cause and effect like everything else. And what happens is they say, well, a long time ago when this was going on, there was no, problem with this. Socialism is good, and, we're going to try it and everything. And what they're trying to do in like the Democratic Party is they're using a combination of things. You look at record numbers of illegals coming into the U.S. California is leading the charge, where they're going to give illegals everything from discounts or free college. They even let them have driver's licenses now. In fact, illegal aliens are getting over $4 billion in tax refunds from the IRS this year, and they're in the country illegally. Okay? Now, can you name any other country on the planet where you can file a tax return as an illegal and get a refund? I only know of one country where that happens all the time, and that's America. USA, good old USA. And Trump is right to complain about this. He's absolutely right. But is he going to really solve it? No. See, they're not going to solve any of this. What's going to happen is demographics are going to win. More people are believing less and less in God. The conservatives are dying out. They're going the way of the dodo. And when enough people who have grown up, and let's say 22% of them continue to believe that the earth may not be round, when those people become the majority, you have a country that is not only in serious trouble, but you have no more Republicans. Now, let me be clear. I have a problem with Republicans. I think conservatives are stuck in a loop. But I also don't believe in bleeding heart liberalism either. You know, having grown up in the 60s and 70s as a kid, some of those guys were on to the right thing. But you can't compare those guys now to the millennials of today. I mean, I've been doing some interviews with a lot of people lately about graduations and stuff like that for some reporting I'm doing. And I'm shocked to find out that everybody gets an award now. Doesn't matter what they do. Everybody wins. So the idea of being a champion is out the door. And what the Democrats are doing right now, real quickly, is Nancy Pelosi is leading the charge on amending the Civil Rights Act of America that Kennedy and Johnson got passed to say that gender identity, not gender, but gender identity now must be respected as if it's a real gender. And what that means is, literally, if this law passes today, and thank God the Senate is made of Republicans in this example, because I would hate to see this become the law, it simply means that if there's a sporting event coming up, and this were the law now, federal law, so all the states have to honor it, I decide I want to enter this competition, but I can't beat any of these guys. But let's say I want to win this tennis trophy because I beat this girl before. So I'm going to tell them I'm a girl, even though I'm not. But I identify as a female for the next 2 weeks during this tournament. And then when I win, then I say, well, I'm a man now. And you have to respect that. And if you don't, I can sue you. You better lawyer up. This is how convoluted this thing gets. I keep telling people there are not over 100 genders. Were you just asleep in science? Or go learn some science. And what they do is they mix the term gender identity with gender as if they're both hard scientific concepts, and they're not. Now, I understand genetically that scientists have found what they claim is a link that drives elements of homosexuality, meaning they have found a genetic link by studying corpses and generations of families that have had homosexuals in them. They have found that the man passes on a gene that tends to make a male feminine, while a woman can pass along a gene that tends to make the female more masculine. We'll be back after this break.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by L.A. Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Christopher Fulton is a survivor of the national security state. All he wanted to do was preserve history when he acquired a Cartier watch from the estate of President Kennedy's personal secretary. But that simple act set off a terrible chain reaction. He was pursued by the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI, thrust into the middle of the U.S. government's Assassination Records Review Board, even monitored and pursued by the Russian government. All because that Cartier watch was the missing link of evidence, a timepiece worn by JFK that fateful day in Dallas, a link resulting in Christopher being incarcerated and attacked for 9 years aliens because he opened a hidden chapter in history. The intriguing journey outlined fully in Christopher Fulton's memoir, The Inheritance, is available now through TrineDay.com or Amazon.com. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination by Christopher and Michelle Fulton is a must-read, an incredible tale of how easily our own government can overrule justice. The Inheritance, Poisoned Fruit of JFK's Assassination.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio. Once again, my name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Boy, time goes by so fast when you're yapping away, as I do at least in my mind. Anyway, to wrap this up here, again, I am aware that there are people, I know them personally, friends of mine, who tend to lean feminine or more masculine if they're women, whatever. I remember some of my best friends in high school were so-called tomboys. These were women who were incredibly smart. I remember one woman, very good friend, just had deep feelings for each other, Mary Bowles. She got a perfect score in math. Genius. But she's a great tennis player. And we used to play all the time. Used to play with another woman named Virginia Carries. Again, she was a bit muscular, but she was a fantastic woman, fantastic player. Straight women, okay? But there are people who do tend to swing maybe towards feminine way, and maybe because they feel, like they've said, a man trapped in a woman's body or vice versa. If that's how they feel, fine, okay? There is that issue. There's about 10, 12% of the population. Fine. That's life, okay? But when somebody tells me with a straight face that they're transhuman, and I say, what is a transhuman? I know enough vocabulary where I can think I figure that out, but I have to ask them because it's not possible. They say, I'm beyond human. Oh, really? In what sense? It must be metaphorically, and even then you can't really be. It can't be literal because you are human. You know, it's as ridiculous and as stupid as what I encountered when I went back undercover for the second major operation against Billy Meyer, when I went to do it, and it was documented by Fox TV and World's Greatest Hoaxes in the Bob Kiviat production. When I got there, Billy Meyer had dumped his wife. We put her on camera. She admitted he was a hoaxer and fraud. That's all in the show. She was shocked to see that the Pleiadians were dancers from the Dean Martin show. We found the tape, showed her. Should have seen the look on her face. She was so mad because she realized her husband, Billy Meyer, the UFO cult leader and hoaxer, had even lied to her to that degree. And I'm thinking, boy, I don't know where you were the whole time we were married to him, but you must have missed a lot. So anyway, nice lady. But what happened is he dumped her. He dumped her because he got pregnant, a follower of his. I think her name was Ava, a young thing. I met her. And they are going to make Pleiadian hybrid children. Oh, boy, isn't that exciting. And that's what they've done, according to them. But you know, all somebody has to do is get off their ass, get a DNA sample, and they prove that there's no Pleiadian hybrid anything. But nobody will do that, see. And the reason I haven't done it is I'm not going to spend the money to go back to Switzerland again, thousands more dollars, just get a DNA sample to say, see, you're human. Because if you're that stupid to believe it, I can't help you. You got to draw a line somewhere, okay? You got to draw a line somewhere. You know, it reminds me of something a lady told me yesterday. She asked me a question. I answered it. She asked me again. I answered it. I did this 6 times. Finally, I answered her the 7th time the same way, using the exact same words. And she says, I heard you the first 6 times. And then I looked at my buddy and I said, you talk to her. I'm done. Because she admitted she heard me 6 times. She refuses to believe me, even though I'm telling her the truth. And I'll tell you what it was over. Please try not to laugh. This is how stupid it was. I was standing next to a woman who had a balloon that burst, and she was not happy. So she wanted helium put in it. And I tried to tell her, ma'am, that balloon can't hold helium. Helium's lighter than air. That's why it floats. She's like, I know that. I'm thinking, okay, we're getting somewhere. I said, this thing you tie, you can't do it. This isn't the right kind of balloon. And, you know, a kid knows this. No, she wanted helium put in the balloon. No, ma'am. I'm telling you, you can ask these guys. They're not going to do it, you know. So I've got my ice cream and I left. And she's arguing with them, and they're telling her the same thing I said, you know. Anyway, like I say, you look at some of these people, when they believe in Pleiadian hybrid children, when there's no evidence to even prove there's any such thing. The Pleiades are a bunch of gas balls. Even Hynek said that. He's quoted in my Meyer expose book because, again, I knew him. He endorsed the book. Again, these people vote. That's probably the scariest thing that I can think of. They vote. And if they use the same mental prowess that allows them to convince themselves that Pleiadian hybrid children exist, and they vote, then God help the country and the politicians they're voting for. That's a nation that doesn't have a bright future. And I'll tell you another thing that really shocked me over the years of investigating the paranormal here. When the book, The Making of Bigfoot, came out, which I was involved with, if it weren't for me, it would never have gotten published. My name is on the cover of it. The guy who wore the Bigfoot suit in the famous Patterson Bigfoot film of 1967, not only did he confess, the guy who made the costume and sold it to Roger Patterson and still had the original one of the Bigfoot feet. I saw them when they came out and showed us from 67. You got people who still say, well, that's not proof of anything. Oh, really? Okay. All right, well, let's ignore the fact that it was made of Dynel fur, which can only be obtained in China, okay? So, gee, what are the odds of a hoaxer being able to get it from there? You know, it's amazing that Bigfoot has the same hair that Dynel fur does in China. Boy, that's just an amazing coincidence. You know, it's like it's like photographing someone wearing a Star Trek uniform and saying, wow, that looks just like the real thing. There is no real thing. Are you guys that stupid? So what I encountered are what I can only describe as militant Bigfoot researchers. These guys take Bigfoot's existence so seriously that if you dare to say he doesn't exist, boy, they literally want to kill you. And one of the worst was John Green, one of the rudest guys I ever had the displeasure of ever encountering. If I had met him one-on-one, I would have to have my Krav Maga skills handy. He wanted to get violent. All because I said the Roger Patterson film was a hoax. Here's the guy who wore the suit. Here's the guy who made the suit. Here's the fur where they got it. And here's one of the original prints, feet from 1967, which he sent to Patterson. But no, that wasn't good enough. So, folks, the message here is not just about Billy Meyer or the histories unidentified or whatever. The common theme here is called critical thinking. Think critically. I've said it before. It's not a coincidence that I founded a company in the 90s called Critical Thinkers. Duh, hello. I had sold Total Research. That became famous because of solving Kennedy's murder and Larry King and so on. Once I was done with the research thing, it was time to help try to make people think critically, especially about emotional issues, which are very important to people when they drive emotions, regardless of what those emotions are. And I still want to do that today. In fact, all that stuff that has been going on the last couple of months, in the last year, regarding the New York Times stuff, where it's so bad that I have a former journalism teacher of mine telling me he can't find a UFO article on the New York Times' page. He was surprised they published an article. I told him they did search it. He couldn't find it. Well, that's because the New York Times spells UFO, U.F.O. They used to do that in the 40s for a small period of time. But the New York Times will not spell KGB or CIA, C.I.A. Only U.F.O. because UFOs are special. No, you don't spell UFOs U.F.O. That's too much energy. You spell it UFO. So he couldn't find it. And then I said they should fire the IT department. He says, no, it's not their problem. Oh, yeah, it is, because I did the same search string in Google and Yahoo managed to find the New York Times article that the New York Times search engine couldn't find when you searched on UFO, spelled the right way, but it could find it when you spelled it the wrong way. You know, it reminds me of the scientist I dated from Stanford University. When she showed me her card, it had her name and it said PhD. And she spelled PhD, P.HD. And I just had to laugh. So anyway, the point in all this is there's so much stuff coming out that is easily exposed and disproves what has constituted the body of knowledge, for lack of a better term. You can't really call it knowledge. It's a body of BS over the decades. And it's time to take it out. It's time to go back to basics and cover the who, what, where, why, and how. So I want you to know that I've been talking to Rob McConnell. You know, it was actually his idea. I'm not going to try to steal credit for it. We're going to team up now, and this is the first public announcement of it. And Rob and I are going to do a show called UFOlogy or UFOOLogy. And at the end of each episode, we're going to tell you what we think it is, like Siskel and Ebert. UFOlogy is a scientific study of UFO reports, period. Not aliens or flying saucers, UFO reports. If it's unidentified, it's a UFO. UFOOLogy is when you make a conclusion or statement about a UFO case that is not derivable from the data. And we know that that happens a lot. In fact, most of what passes for so-called ufology today is really UFOOLogy. So this is going to be fun, folks, because a lot of the people out there are just not telling you a lot of things, and they know better. It's been interesting to see the reactions to the piece that is now the lead story in the current X-Zone Chronicles newsletter about Stanton Friedman. It's been interesting to see where the lines are being drawn, because History Channel is going to move forward claiming the Hill case is real. The same producer who did Dark Skies and pushed the MJ-12 hoax, thanks to Friedman, is going to say it's real. This is what history is going to give you, folks, and it's fraud. It is pure fraud. And we're going to make sure that they know about it ahead of time, and we're going to make it public so that by the time they dare air it, if they do, they can't say, we didn't know. So what's coming? UFOlogy or UFOOLogy, exclusively to the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Rob and I will let you know soon when the first episode will air, and don't be surprised if it airs very soon. I'm really excited about this. It's going to be unscripted. We're going to look at the so-called best evidence, and at the end we're going to say UFOlogy or UFOOLogy. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on SimulTV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is SimulTV. SimulTV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. SimulTV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have SimulTV today. Sign up at SimulTV.com. Do it today.